And welcome everyone to Redacted on this Wednesday. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natali Morris.
And on this show, we cover the stories the mainstream media ignores. The legacy media is dying right before our eyes. And thanks to all of you for subscribing and being a part of our daily show here. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Today, we're covering a lot of stories. Of course, big movements right now that's happening in the Supreme Court. Hearing about transgender transitioning for minors. Well, how will the Supreme Court handle that? We're also going to look at the hot war with Russia because NATO making some big moves over the past 48 hours to make sure that Ukraine has additional weapons, even though the entire front line of Ukraine has essentially collapsed. Tucker Carlson in Moscow admitting that we are in a hot war with Russia right now. And we're going to hear from Tucker on that and so much more today on the show.
Plus, migrants have been stopped from coming in to the United States from the southern border because Donald Trump threatened Mexico. Funny how that works, right? So at least 2 caravans have been stopped. That's funny. Also, crime is down in New York City. This is something Mayor Adams posted on X. And then within the last 24 hours, there was a targeted assassination inside the city. We're going to talk about the United Health CEO's assassination, why it feels like this is literally out of the pages of a Batman comic. That was one of the first things I said this morning. I'm like, this is like Gotham City. Targeted executives by, we can't show you can't show you the footage, but I'm sure you've seen it. It's clear that this person knows what he's doing, is waiting for this person. So it feels like a terrifying time. But we're in it together, folks. We're also going to talk to Liz Joy about this. She's a Second Amendment rights activist. Go ahead. Well.
The French government has just collapsed. We're going to talk about that. And we're also going to talk about this big UFO flap that's happened over the past 48 hours. More UFOs now over the homes of federal agents. Yes, the FBI investigating these UFO incursions in the United States are now reporting that these drones, or whatever they are over their own homes of our federal agents. Why aren't we shooting them down? What the heck is actually happening? We're going to get to all of that on today's show. So welcome in. We'll get to all of that. But first, we want to tell you that Redacted is sponsored by Ramp. Now, if you run your own small business or like to run your finances like a small business, then you need software that will give you the very most control over your company's spending. Ramp is the corporate card and spend management software designed to help you save time and put money in your pocket. Now, have you considered we only have a few short weeks in 2024? That means that you need to get your expenses in to lower your taxes, right? But you need to know where you've been. You need to know how much you're working with. You need to know who's spending what inside your corporation. So say goodbye to those manual expense report and use Ramp. Then you'll know what your tax bill might look like and get a handle of that before the clock expires on 2024. Not only that, but they allow you to issue cards inside of your company with as much control and limit as you need. In fact, my father had this problem. He's now reporting fraud for some of his employees he was not using Ramp. And so he has to now deal with police because of this. So again, get ahead of your finances. Right now, you can get $250 when you join Ramp. Just head on over to ramp.com/redacted. One more time, that's ramp.com, ramp.com/redacted. Cards issued by Sutton Bank, member of the FDIC. Terms and conditions apply. Well, we are actively in a hot war with Russia, and it's about to get a whole lot worse. We are starting tonight with significant developments out of Ukraine. Overnight, Russia launched a massive show of force in the Mediterranean Ocean, show off hypersonic missile launches and massive drills preparing for whatever NATO is trying to throw at it right now, because you have the collapse of the front line in Ukraine as we speak. And so all of these things are collapsing in Ukraine, but NATO is doubling down and looking to extend the war with Russia. These are hypersonic missile launches targeting a large offensive right now against Ukrainian and possible NATO targets. We're hearing from sources. We got news that Ukraine's front line has essentially collapsed. So take a look at this sort of a month by month. You can see here the Russian takeover of these, what were once, this is in the Donbass area and in eastern Ukraine. These are ethnic Russian villages, largely. Of course, they voted to become part of Russia. They were tired of being attacked since 2014 after the CIA-backed coup that the Obama administration carried out and the genocide that they were carrying out against these people in eastern Ukraine. Look at this. It's completely collapsed. So there is nothing left. Zelensky today was broadcasting that he was there on the front lines meeting with, I guess, what's left of these forces and delivering state medals to them. Like, how does that make them feel?
But when you look at where their forces are, they're not on the front lines. They're up on the Russian border. So they have very few forces even on the contested border. South, they have a few forces south and a few way north of the fighting. So where could he mean by that? He assumes you don't know the difference. And
that's largely what's been the case. That's why great journalists like Tucker Carlson, who we try to feature on this show as much as possible, because he's one of the few who've been outspoken about this war and what's really going on here. He just arrived in Moscow yesterday and warns that we're on the brink of a nuclear war. We are already in a hot war. Let's listen to what Tucker had to say as he arrived in Moscow last night.
In the week since we left Russia, Moscow, where we are now, in February, after interviewing Vladimir Putin, we've watched from the United States as the Biden administration has driven the U.S. ever closer to a nuclear conflict with Russia, the country that possesses the world's largest nuclear arsenal. It has accelerated ever since, and it's reached its apogee so far in the weeks after Trump's election. He's now the president-elect. In that time, just a few weeks ago, the Biden administration, American military personnel launched missiles into mainland Russia and killed at least a dozen Russian soldiers. So we are, unbeknownst to most Americans, in a hot war with Russia, an undeclared war, a war you did not vote for and that most Americans don't want, but that is ongoing. And because of that war, because of the fact that the U.S. military is killing Russians in Russia right now, we are closer to nuclear war than at any time in history. Far closer than we were during the Cuban Missile Crisis. That would mean the elimination of Russia, the United States, and most of the rest of the world. We felt there must be someone behind the scenes in Washington working to make sure that this conflict doesn't become a nuclear holocaust. But we found out that no, in fact, there is nobody. Tony Blinken, the current Secretary of State, cut off all contact between the U.S. and Russian governments. There is no back channel, there is no conversation, there hasn't been for more than 2 years. That's shocking. Meanwhile, most Americans have no access to any perspective other than that granted to them by NBC News and the New York Times. They don't know how close we are. They don't know the Russian perspective. We've been trying for over a year to get that perspective out to American news consumers. We've also tried for over a year to get an interview with Zelensky, the president of Ukraine. We've attacked that from a bunch of different angles. We've spoken to a lot of different people around him, had dinner with them. We've been in talks continuously, and those efforts have been thwarted by the U.S. government. The American embassy in Kiev, which our tax dollars pay for, told the Zelensky government, no, you may not do the interview. You can talk to CNN, you can't talk to us.
That is unbelievable.
But they went to Joe Rogan? Because reports were...
Zelensky went to Joe Rogan to ask him for an interview.
He wants Joe Rogan and not Tucker Carlson. Okay, because he thinks Joe Rogan will ask him about his kids and his weightlifting habits?
Right. I mean, it's unbelievable. But the fact that the U.S. State Department has thwarted... I mean, that just goes to show you that the entire Ukrainian government is run by the United States government. It's run by the CIA and the United States State Department. And by the way, Secretary Blinken is the de facto president, not only of the United States, but I guess also of Ukraine. To tell them that you can't do an interview?
Yeah, with Tucker
Our
Carlson.
own United States government actively wants this. Go ahead, Philip. It's unbelievable.
Well, how freaking stupid. So the reason any of us are still alive today is because during the Cuban Missile Crisis, there was back channel communications with Russia. Mm-hmm. Like if you're
right,
if you're in the threat of nuclear war, communication is super, super, super important. And if they have no communication, I mean, that is absolutely just dereliction. I mean, that is just crazy.
Yes, that's a good word for it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, after that, right, Kennedy had the red phone directly to the Kremlin installed after the Cuban Missile Crisis, a direct channel. Like
maybe you want
Kennedy
to blow some dust off of that.
Kennedy could call Khrushchev. Like that was going to be, that red phone. I don't know if we even still have it or not. But anyway, NATO's new head, Mark Rutte.
Can I just, before we go down this path, because it's really important to talk about diplomacy. We know that Antony Blinken's State Department just is not interested in doing it for whatever reason. Do we think that a Marco Rubio State Department, this is a dark thought, will he do it? Come on. Marco Rubio, will he open diplomacy with Russia? He thinks that Russia blew up the Nord Stream pipeline.
Right.
He's adult.
He's more likely to install a video phone so he can flip them off and they can see it. I mean, I don't see anything else.
I think
I'd see him maybe even. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think we need to take into consideration that he is working for the Trump administration. So you would think he would have to follow whatever the Trump administration instructed him to do when he's there and not just do what he would want to do, because he'll lose that position.
I guess. I mean, if he had to get in a room with Vladimir Putin and talk all kinds of smack like he does on CNN, you got to think you'd see a pee stain in his pants as soon as he tries it. But okay. Little Marco
Rubio. I know. But why are they trying to do this before Trump gets in office, right? So they're ramping this up as much as they can. You have NATO's new head, Mark Rutte. He's called for no peace agreement between Ukraine and Russia. Instead, he announced increased military support over the past 24 hours, signaling a firm stance against any kind of peace negotiations. Mm-hmm. This follows President Zelensky, also over the past 24 hours, essentially admitting that Ukraine cannot defeat Russia and cannot reclaim Crimean territory, and peace should actually be considered. Let's put that out on the table. So like NATO swoops in and is like, whoa, you're talking peace? Sorry, you can't do that. You can't do that. Even crazier, Secretary of State Blinken, who is currently, as I mentioned, the U.S. President of the United States, instead of pushing for peace just yesterday, called on Zelensky and Ukraine to lower the age for conscription fighting against Russia. So send your teenagers to fight now so they can die like the rest of the men that you've killed, you satanic piece of garbage. Listen.
And finally, mobilization. This is critical because even with the money, even with the munitions, there have to be people on the front lines to deal with the Russian aggression. Ukraine has hard decisions to make about further mobilization, but these are necessary decisions. We have a commitment, though, for every person, every soldier that Ukraine mobilizes. We're committed to making sure that they have the training and the equipment they need to effectively defend the country.
What?
And again, that's what we focus on.
Yeah.
Going forward, as I said, Ukraine is on an irreversible path to NATO membership, but we're focused on this in a practical way. We set up a dedicated NATO.
Yeah, so they're going to become part of NATO.
They're not trained. They're being sent in with sticks and buckets. We know this. So that's a lie. Who let him lie like that? And then can you imagine being in this room and being like, then why are they saying their manuals are in English, they have no training, and they're deserting at record numbers? You're lying.
That's why we need younger people. So he needs 18-year-olds now to go and die for our NATO proxy war. He's in a room full of NATO sycophants. I mean, that's who he's speaking to. He's in front of all of these like intelligence reporters or whatever that the only reason they get that beat is because they're total sycophants, right? And they kiss up to these guys.
Yeah.
That's why they're in the room. He also announced, and by the way, someone in our chat room was saying, American soldiers have died in Ukraine. Yes, as we reported here, we were the first to report this story and broke this story months ago here at Redacted, that there were American soldiers. And I want to know what the NDAs look like from the U.S. military to those family members. Or are they lying to those family members whose young men have died fighting in Ukraine? American soldiers who've died in Ukraine. What are they telling their parents about this?
Well, our kids were in a diplomat school when we lived abroad, and they had a NATO presentation to the assembly, to the whole class. And my son said, they told us that NATO is a peace organization and it's only defensive. And I was like, they did? That's liars. They told you that in a school assembly?
Liars.
Okay.
Yeah. Europe is crumbling quickly. So here was Secretary of State Blinken also throwing some more money at the problem. Today, I'm announcing the delivery of $725 million in additional weapons and equipment for Ukraine's defense. The United States and more than 50 nations stand united with Ukraine. Blinken also just posted this. I'm sorry, these tweets also came in right after that. People in my state of North Carolina are still camping in tents without electricity and running water due to Hurricane Helene, while Joe Biden is still money laundering to Zelensky to continue covering up for crimes for the Biden crime family. F all of you. DK says that's a large amount of money to launder in such a short amount of time. Ava says, I love my United States. While people in North Carolina freeze in tents, you effers can't be gone fast enough. Not to be outdone,
the comments
President
on that post are pretty fun.
President Biden himself was in Africa and was wanting, instead of just the $700 million that we're delivering to Ukraine, wanted to deliver $1 billion to African countries who've lost their homes or had their homes damaged as a result of natural disasters. $1 billion to Africa.
You know, that's the right thing for the wealthiest nation in the world to do. And today, I'm announcing over $1 billion in new humanitarian support for Africans displaced from homes by historic droughts and food insecurity.
Great. Thank you so much. That's the right thing for the most powerful country in the world to do, he says. But we can't help our own people because actual Americans in the United States are sleeping in makeshift structures. They're sleeping in tents in North Carolina because they can't get help from the Biden administration. Take a look at this.
I met Sarah outside the trailer she's living in with her husband, 2 kids, 2 cats, and 2 dogs. Like almost everyone here, their home was destroyed and condemned, and they also lost their cars and their jobs.
Everybody that I've talked to says they're getting no help.
Their trailer was donated by a volunteer, not FEMA, and they have to pay for their own porta potty.
I had to rent this so that we would even be able to use the bathroom.
So you had to pay for that yourself?
Yes. Yeah, it's $130 a month to rent one.
Sarah's one hope was U.S. Small Business Administration disaster loan. But then she got this voicemail.
This is a call from the U.S. Small Business Administration about your SBA disaster loan application. Due to a lapse in congressional funds, new loan offers will be delayed until Congress provides additional funding for the disaster loan program. We understand how frustrating this delay is.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
Why didn't Congress have to approve aid to Ukraine?
Well, we got to make sure the Ukrainians, fight to the last in Ukrainian. So we're going to send tens of billions of dollars there. We'll send $1 billion to Africa to make sure that their homes are rebuilt after natural disasters. I mean, look, you want to know why these guys lost the election? This is why you lost the election. It's an absolute clown show right now. Go ahead, Philip. Ugh.
Didn't they? Did I dream it, or did they say there was plenty of money for the people in North Carolina?
They did say that. Yeah. They said that, but that was before the election, so they didn't mean it.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, they didn't mean it.
Maybe they should. They should make a rule that if we have a single unwilling person living on the streets in the United States, especially a vet, no money goes anywhere else. No money leaves this country until that's taken care of. Then we can have the conversation.
Yeah, you would imagine. Can you imagine what you could do with $1 billion just in that community to clean it up and provide homes and to rebuild that entire infrastructure?
Yes, but we've covered a lot of what China is doing in Africa, building out infrastructure and structuring loans to African nations and actually providing them with infrastructure like roads and internet and sewage systems and things like that and improving that. But China's getting paid back and it's a business structure. We are a country heavily in debt. So who decided that we could do this? He says it's the right thing to do for the wealthiest country in the world. Okay, those things don't bear out when we look at our federal deficit and our expanding government. So anyhow, well, let's take a look at New York City.
Sorry, just one real quick. It's like, it might be the right thing to do for me to buy a Christmas present for every kid in town. That doesn't mean I have the money to do it.
Yeah, right? It's the thought that counts. Well, let's take a look at New York City. It looks more like Gotham City every single day. Today, the CEO of United Health was fatally shot in the chest on his way to an annual investor meeting at Midtown Manhattan. Police say they didn't know the suspect's motives. They still don't, but many are speculating that this was targeted. We can't show you the video. You can find it quite easily on X, but you can tell this person is waiting for his target. This person is clearly very skilled with a gun. He knows what he's doing. The police say that they don't think this is a threat to the public because obviously it was a threat to this guy in particular. His wife says he had been receiving death threats and he, again, we don't know exactly what those would be pertaining to. So police are still looking. Although, incidentally, there's an account on X, which I didn't bring a picture because I saw it so recently. If you look up at RTWLZ on X, this person makes it a habit to scrape city bike data every minute because it's a hobby of his, I presume, and says that he did locate a city bike that went from this area all the way up the east side within 10 minutes of the shooting, and he's reported that to police. So I love that internet sleuthing. Maybe that's something, maybe it's not. Now, some radical liberals, though, are saying this guy had it coming. Why? Because he's a capitalist, because he's a head of big business. Here is him, this, I want to say like extremist liberal, saying that this is the capitalist revolt that he's been waiting for.
Have you guys heard the good news? They say it was a targeted attack. And personally, the gunman is at large. So if you see anything, no, you didn't. Oh, you think no, you didn't. Protect this person. Also, do more. That's a hero. That's my hero right there.
Do more? As in death to the capitalists? This is a doggy. That's a Bolshevik. That's literally a Bolshevik type thing. So anyhow, hopefully this guy gets reported as he's inciting violence.
Well, and there's
Wouldn't
a lot,
you say?
Well, yeah, that's
pretty
sure.
obvious.
Yeah. I mean, can we talk a little bit more about the shooter here in this situation? Yeah. Because I reached out to a former FBI agent and said that he told me just a short time ago that it's a total amateur hour approach in this shooting. Something is very fishy here in that you wouldn't shoot in this environment with the well lit, with all the surveillance there, the type of firearms. It's not very close distance for a handgun either. So you'd really have to have confidence that you're going to hit this target. And it's also very strange that the way in which he was manually loading this thing, manually injecting, it seems like he was trying to keep the brass so that there wouldn't be casings available for the police to find afterwards. So some of it's a bit of a mix here. And it shows that the level of training, he says, is a little bit different here. And
what do you mean different?
Well, if you really wanted to execute this thing, you would probably walk up with a low caliber weapon like a 22 or a 9mm with subsonic rounds on it, and shoot them right there in the dark, in some sort of darkness. And you wouldn't do this in daylight in this type of environment, and using this type of a gun, it wouldn't make sense. So very, very strange. All of it is very, very strange.
Now, this comes just within 24 hours that Mayor Eric Adams says that crime is down in New York City. It also comes as the jury begins to deliberate on the Daniel Penny trial. Eric Adams does seem to indicate that Penny should be acquitted because, for obvious reasons, you can't have people who are too scared to defend themselves against dangerous people. So we'll see how that goes. We're going to talk to Second Amendment advocate Liz Joy coming up about that, about, again, how New York City seems to be straight off the pages of a Batman comic coming up after the break.
Yeah. Also very, very strange. All right, let me pull up my notes here again. So, well, we just had the French government collapse. This is a pretty amazing moment. Is the Emmanuel Macron era finally over? Will this usher in Marie Le Pen? Will they wind up like Belgium, basically without a government for 4 months because they can't get their act together? Belgian officials saying, you know what, we're actually okay with not having a government right now. So they've been like waiting to get a coalition government together. They can't. So for 4 months. But yeah, over just a short time ago, the prime minister,
Michel Barnier
just lost a no confidence vote with 331 votes to 288. Basically, his government has to resign, and Macron will have to appoint a new premier. And a lot of people saying that this, as Marie Le Pen has just posted on social media, she says it's the end of this ephemeral government. And she says, to those who think I'm intent on choosing a policy of disaster through a vote of no confidence, I want to tell them that this disastrous policy would not be to censure such a budget, such a government. And she wants to know, where's all the money? It's all about taxes, taxes, and more taxes. That's
Which
why.
is interesting considering that the current prime minister was one of the negotiators of Brexit, which was a financial deal. So, yeah,
right.
Where's the money, guy? Well, authorities in Mexico dissolved 2 caravans of would-be illegal immigrants heading to the United States. That's interesting. We usually don't see that, right? So according to reports, migrant activists said this week that some were bused to cities in southern Mexico and others were offered transit papers. Migrant rights activist Luis Garcia Villagran said that breaking up the 2 caravans appears to be part of an agreement between President-elect Trump and the president of Mexico after they met recently, and Trump threatened to levy a 25% tariff on imports from Mexico, meaning stop this bleeding or else we're going to use our financial leverage to the best of our ability. For those who do make it across illegally across the southern border before President Trump is inaugurated, they may not want to unpack because a panel of 3 judges for the Ninth Circuit of Appeals unanimously ruled that the federal government does have the authority to deport foreign nationals who are in the United States illegally. Interestingly enough, this was about a 2019 case that originally was fought by the Trump administration, and it's the Biden administration that won it. So that's it. What's so interesting about that is Trump filed against this case to assert his right to deport people. The Biden administration kept it going and fought it and won it in time for Trump. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Timing. So what it was a 2019 executive order in King County, Washington, by county executives said that the Trump administration could not use their local airport to deport people, and they were ordering local authorities not to work with the federal government. So the Trump administration sued, won the case, they appealed, and the latest ruling upholds that win. So to the credit, again, of the Biden administration, they didn't forfeit this case when they took office. They kept at least fighting for it. So they kind of, Biden won it for Trump. It's the Biden, Justice Department that kept it going. So, okay, that's interesting. The court ruled that local governments cannot interfere with or control the operations of the federal government. So that won't be good for Gavin Newsom, because he has repeatedly promised to stop deportations in his state. He started this special legislator session this week where he says he's going to make sure he sort of Trump-proofs California. So whatever, the federal government does that will interfere with California's, he calls them civil rights, reproductive freedom, climate action, and immigrant families, that California will stop it. But California is not sovereign. They don't have their own government. So if there now is a federal deportation effort, the courts ruled that California does have to comply. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see what kind of fight in him that Gavin Newsom has.
Well, there's been quite a UFO flap happening across the United States. It has the members of the FBI now certainly looking into this. It's happening in the UK as well. Just a short time ago, right before our show started, I spoke to Christopher Sharp, who is in the United Kingdom, about what is happening here. He's a fantastic journalist, and I want to play that interview for you right now. Well, the FBI is now investigating UFOs over multiple military bases. And in fact, these same UFOs are now being spotted over FBI agents' homes. And it's all happening right now in the United States and the United Kingdom. Why? Watch this.
Well, Will, one of the ships was in fact inspected by the Coast Guard, and they couldn't find anything. The thing is that there were several other suspicious ships in the region that they never got to. And Will, it gets worse. Just a couple of months earlier, there were several mystery drone flights over our nuclear testing range in Nevada, just north of Las Vegas. And again, nothing was done. And it gets even worse. Some of the FBI agents that have been assigned to look into this have reported drones flying over their homes as if to say, hey, we know where you are.
So what the heck is going on here? Let's ask excellent journalist Christopher Sharp, who covers these UFOs and UAP stories on his website, Liberation Times. He also writes at the Daily Mail as well. Christopher, great to see you. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Clayton.
It's crazy. So what is happening? What is your assessment? I know you don't have all of the answers, but you've been piecing a lot of this together from across the pond, a number of these UFO incursions happening in the UK. They've been, seen by many, many eyewitnesses, shared across social media like this one that we're showing here on your screen. So what's just your initial assessment of what you think is going on?
At this moment, these are all guesses. There is an information vacuum that exists right now. My belief is that there is a national emergency, at least in the UK, insofar as the MOD is concerned, the Ministry of Defence. My assessment is that these events are very concerning. From my understanding, they're still ongoing. It's been 2 weeks now since drones were first seen over very, very sensitive RAF bases, UK RAF bases operated by the US Air Force in eastern England. And I think everyone is baffled by them. I think the best guess is that these are Russian and Chinese. Remember, these incursions started after permission was given to use ATACMS and Storm Shadow missiles in Russia. So it seems very, very coincidental that all these incursions started after that decision was made. But I think there are still some real questions that are quite concerning. The most concerning is that why have they not captured the controllers of these supposed drones yet? Why have they not worked out origin?
Well, why have they not shot any of them down? So you're telling me that, according to your sources at the Ministry of Defense, that this is considered a national emergency in England right now?
So I have a variety of sources. All I can say is that I can only speak insofar as my opinion. But I have a very strong opinion that this does constitute a national emergency, correct? There have also been sightings as well at another RAF base, which is operated by the US Air Force, named RAF Fairford. That's in Gloucestershire, so that's more to the west of England, but a different geographic location. But yeah, this is a crazy situation we find ourselves in. One of the bases that's been most impacted is RAF Lakenheath. Interestingly, RAF Lakenheath has been prepared to receive nuclear weapons from the USA. And the rumor is that those may now be deployed at the base, which, if true, it makes the situation even more concerning. Now, in the UK, we're very blessed to have plane spotters who actually spend a lot of their time outside these bases to watch the F-15s and F-35s go up in the air. So in the UK, we've been in a position where we've been able to kind of like have these events live streamed, insofar as the jets going up to perhaps see if they can identify or follow this stuff. Yeah.
So intercept or perhaps engage with these drones, UFOs. When we say UFOs, we just mean unidentified flying objects. We're not calling them aliens, as I've said on the show. We don't know exactly what they are. Here in, over in New Jersey, for instance, just over the past 48 hours, many, many eyewitnesses seeing these huge drones about the size of cars, like 10 feet in length, hovering over homes, and not just there for like 10 minutes. Hovering there for more than an hour or so. It's remarkable. If they're coming from China or Russia, how are they getting there? Where is the mothership, so to speak? These drones can't travel that far on that amount of energy and battery power to get from Russia into New Jersey. Where are they coming from? And why isn't the United States doing anything about it? You hear members of Congress, as we played here in the beginning, saying that these now are hovering over FBI agents' homes, as if to say, we know exactly where you are, we know where you live, and we're hovering above your home right now. It's remarkable.
It's very disturbing. From my understanding, these things are on a pre-programmed setting, so their coordinates of where they're flying to have been pre-programmed. They are very, very sophisticated. They must have some kind of AI sensor system as well, because the sightings over RAF Lakenheath, they've seen them just above the tree line. So, and also they've been spotted as well in winds of over 65 miles per hour. in a recent storm that we've had. They're operating at night as well. The thing that confuses me is that if these are Russian and Chinese drones and they do show advanced technology, why would they risk the chance of such technology being recovered by the Western allies and exploited? That would also cause a major diplomatic fallout as well. But from my understanding at the moment, none of the drone counter provisions, such as jamming, taking over the drones that it's returned to the controller, none of those countermeasures have worked or are feasible.
Wow. So everything we've tried, jamming, trying to take control of them, none of that has worked. And they're there, and we're not intercepting them. We're not shooting them down. Have you heard any reports of the Royal Air Force trying to engage and fire upon these things?
I haven't heard any reports. I do know that there may be a concern, from my understanding, that if you do take control of the drone and send back to its origin where it came from, there is the danger that it may have been preset to land on one of the air bases. And if it has a payload, which could potentially be explosive, then if the worst situation happens, it would be the responsibility of the US Air Force or the UK if something bad happened in that situation. So there are some alarming features when it comes to this, correct?
I mean, then you could I'll get you out of here on this, Christopher, which is if they're not Russian or they're not Chinese, it seems odd and weird that they're hovering over all of these homes in the United States and we're not doing anything to stop it. Then is it something else? Is it something from off-world, some sort of off-world vehicles that are here to say, you guys are on the precipice of nuclear war, you better stop it, we're watching you. I just can't wrap my head around why we wouldn't be engaging with these things at the Pentagon. Why are we not doing anything to stop them? I mean, I know it's a huge leap, but am I far afield on that?
At this point, we just don't have any of the answers. There's an information vacuum that exists right now. We just don't have enough information. From what I've heard, they are man-made. Okay, but if they're man-made, they're also demonstrating advanced technology that we may not understand how it works. Okay, that's strange. And if that is the case, and if it is Russia or China, why would they risk that technology being captured? Look, we do know that there have been cases of mimicry when it comes to UAP, that they'll mimic helicopters and other things. I have no information to suggest they are UAP yet, as in Pentagon's definition of them, displaying some anomalous behavior or capabilities such as transmedium activity or instantaneous accelerations. I've got nothing on that so far. I think it really is just a really horrible position that we're in right now, is that we just don't have the answers. All we can do is speculate and keep following the story. But the longer this goes on for, the more disturbing it becomes. And I keep on using that word because it has, and I think it's rattled a lot of top officials, both in the UK and the US.
Well, we have many, many viewers in the UK who are watching our show. And I know you've put a call out to anybody in certain sectors of the UK who've witnessed some of these drones in certain areas to reach out to you. So you can follow Chris on your X account. Reach out to Chris if you've seen any of these UAPs, UFOs in your area. He's collecting all of this data right now and doing amazing work on all of this. So, Christopher, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Clayton. It's a pleasure.
Thanks so much. So that was Christopher Sharp. Thank you for that. We have a couple of people here. Darlin Dar in Michigan says, I am in mid-Michigan, and they hover over my house all the time. Not sure what to do about it. The only difference in the ones that they're seeing here on the screen, is that the ones that you're seeing in mid-Michigan have multicolors going around on the bottom of these. I mean, film them, send them to us. I mean, go ahead.
I recently heard of there's a town in, I believe it's in Colorado, that it's just like clockwork, like regularly, like all of the citizens know that at a certain time of night, these are going to show up, and they know where they're going to show up. And they just it's like the police just constantly go out and monitor this. It's bizarre.
Cool.
I'm going to drive there.
Okay.
I would love to go there.
All right.
I'm down. I want to see that.
If you get beamed up, just put an AirTag.
Put an AirTag on the UFO?
On the car.
I wonder how good AirTags would work. Like, we're noticing I'm going to open Find My.
And it shows
another
you're
dimension.
on Mars.
It shows another dimension.
Or can you please come back from Mars? You need to pick up the kids from school.
Clayton, it shows on your Find My that you're in Antarctica. Yeah. How did you get down to the South Pole Station? How did you get down there so quickly? Speaking of Africa, we were talking about Africa earlier, Biden down there. So this is embarrassing. This just came in earlier today. So President Biden sitting there with the African leaders. Take a look at this. You can roll it, where he's sitting as these African leaders are talking. And President Biden is literally just asleep.
He's checked out.
He's totally asleep. Falls asleep at the Trans-Africa Summit. Like, they're talking to him, asking him questions. You could actually play the audio if you would, Philip, because it's funnier.
The implementation of the project will provide important opportunities for Africa's development.
He's literally asleep.
Such as agriculture, renewable energy, digital transformation, trade and logistics along the corridor. Tanzania is...
That's your president of the United States. That's your president. That reminds me of my father at like 7 p.m. at night.
That's what happened. That thing snapped out of it and was just like $1 billion.
$1 billion for you.
Yeah, that's totally like your dad falls asleep and you're like, can I have $20, Dad? Yeah.
I mean, like when my dad was like tired after a long day of work when I was in the 1980s, and I wanted to start making videos and doing my own stuff. I said, Dad, can I get a camcorder? Can we order a camcorder? And he was like kind of half asleep in the recliner. And I'm like, they're advertising it on TV right now. Can we do it? Can I call? I say, okay. That's how I got my first camcorder.
All right.
And now look at me.
Good story.
Right. We got more news coming up here on the show. In fact, yes, we do. We've had a lot more news. Crime is apparently down in New York City.
Right. We're going to talk to Liz Joy about this. She was a congressional candidate in the state of New York. She also is a victim of crime, of violent crime. So she's been a Second Amendment advocate and has been tracking this in New York. So she's someone we're really keen to talk to. But before we do that, we want to tell you about our friends over at Bank on Yourself, because you've been brainwashed into believing the only way to grow your money is to risk it in the stock market. Or if you have a 401k or an IRA, what you're doing is partnering with the government to invest in the stock market so that they can pervert your money whenever they want to through the cartel that is the Federal Reserve. Well, there is actually a better way, which is called Bank on Yourself. This is a proven retirement plan alternative that lets you bypass Wall Street, beat the banks at their own game, and take control of your financial future. What you're doing is becoming your own bank with all of the benefits, but none of the risks as using a different type of bank. In fact, you have guaranteed predictable growth in retirement income with no luck, skill, or guesswork retired. The only skill involved is you have to learn this. You have to learn what it is the same way you have learned what a 401k is or an IRA. This is something different. And if you really want to do what wealthy people do, you use alternative plans like this. And in fact, it's tax-free retirement income, because right now with our current tax laws, your tax rate when you retire will be 0. Whereas if you're using your 401k as your savings, your tax rate when you withdraw it will most likely be quite high. So your 401k is not really a savings account. It's something you'll pay taxes on later. So that's not a great deal. You can get a free report with all the details on how Bank on Yourself strategy adds guaranteed, predictable, and control to your financial plan. Get this free report and then sit down and read it. Just take the time to study it and see if this works for your family. Just go to bankonyourself.com/redacted. One more time, you get a free report for this proven retirement plan alternative. Head on over to bankonyourself.com/redacted. Well, New York City looks more like Gotham City every day. Just today, the CEO of United Health was fatally shot in the chest on his way to an investor meeting in Midtown Manhattan, rather. Now, this comes as the jury begins deliberation in the Daniel Penny trial, the veteran who held down the man who was harassing subway riders. That man later died, and Penny is being tried for manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide. Well, my next guest has been warning about violence in New York City and New York abroad. She's a former New York congressional candidate who survived an assault in New York by a man with a knife and brass knuckles. So she is a vocal supporter of the Second Amendment and restoring law and order in New York City, which seems to not be there. So Liz Joy, thank you so much for being a first-time Redacted guest.
Well, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yes. So what is your assessment of this attack in New York City?
I was looking at that. You talk about Brian Thompson, this morning. It's lawlessness. We do have lawlessness in New York City. I was watching the press conference that the New York Police Department just did moments ago, and they were saying that they do actually believe that this is a targeted attack, sadly. So when he came out, was outside of the hotel, he was purposely, they believe, gunned down, which is very sad. And they tried to revive him, the police said, and he died at the hospital. So this being a targeted attack is sad. Nobody has any idea what the motive could be at all. But New York City right now, overall, crime is rampant. We know for a fact that we have over roughly 60,000 illegal aliens that are in fact violent criminals. The 60,000, they are violent criminals. They are running all over the city. It's catch and release because of bail reform, and they're not being deported. This is on top of, Kathy Hochul's refusal to repeal bail reform, which has skyrocketed crime. It's a dangerous place to be. It's a very dangerous place to be.
And yet just today, I don't know if you saw this, but Mayor Eric Adams posted on X that crime is down. Subway crime is down. Transit crime, homicide, robberies down by 7%. So do you think this has to do with the change in the way that this is reported due to the new FBI protocol, or is this fuzzy math?
I don't understand why he would say it's down. Is he reporting down from the fact that these people are not going to jail? Because that I would believe. So, people are not being put in jail. They're just giving them a ticket to reappear. Many of these people are repeat offenders. I do not know why he would say that it's down. When is it down? Is it down just since President Trump won election on November 5th? And he now, Mayor Adams has said that he wants to work with, the Trump administration against what Kathy Hochul has said she will do. So I'm not really sure what dates he's using that it's down, because to me, no, crime is not down. It's actually it's increasing, and we have very active gang members who are all over the streets, and New Yorkers have been terrified.
Right. So he's saying down from November 2023. And again, we've seen how the FBI crime statistics are not reliable because the change of reporting. And something one of my favorite economists, Thomas Sowell, says is people don't live in the aggregate. So even if it's down, people are still afraid of crime because this is the way that they're living. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about your experience in 2018 and how that prompted you to be a vocal supporter of the Second Amendment and restoring law and order in bail reform, and why that has become your platform.
Yes. Well, so 2018 was before bail reform took effect. Bail reform went into effect in 2019. So in 2018, August 30th of 2018, I was a customer in a very well-known salon here in the area. And I was in there literally just getting my nails done with the person that I had been going to for a long time. And a man came in who had a knife and brass knuckles. We were the only ones in the room at the time. The salon side was filled, but the manicure pedicure room, we were the only ones in there. And he stabbed her and began to beat her with the brass knuckles and tried to kill her. It was an attempted murder. My experience was, at the time, I jumped up, it happens in seconds. I jumped up from the table and ran to get something that I could defend her with. And because, she's a mom, had 2 kids. And so I grabbed what I could, which was a wrought iron mannequin, actually. And I basically used it like a javelin, and I beat him as hard as I possibly could. And I did keep him away from her. But he was also hitting back and swinging back at me. So we had a very, what felt like to me, a very long time. It was about an 8-minute fight, all-out fight between him and I. And while the police, arrived, and the police were wonderful, but he was pushing, and I, was pushed down and fell down. She was unconscious at this point in a matter of seconds from the time he had stabbed her multiple times. I was, had run out and come right back into the room. He had done a lot of damage. He had done a lot of damage. She sustained 2 life-saving surgeries. She survived. I'm so thankful for that. He ended up getting 25 years in maximum security prison, and I went through 4 months of physical therapy recovery. I sustained some blunt force trauma to my knees, and was on a cane for weeks, and then some crutches as well. But I fully recovered. She fully recovered, and very thankfully, he is serving time. But there are other people that are not that don't have the outcomes that we did, where these people are put away, and that's the case with bail reform.
I mean, that's like Big Little Lies. That's an amazing story. I can't believe you had the wherewithal to find something like that. So brava to you. That's impressive and horrible. But if we take that as, let's compare it to the Daniel Penny story. So it was someone who was threatening riders on the subway. He took action, and now he's being charged with murder and criminally negligent homicide. Had you killed this man, can you see how you might have faced something similar? And what's your take on that trial?
Yes, actually, I will tell you, at the time, I was not a licensed, concealed carry pistol permit, holder at the time here in New York. I will tell you, I am now. And right. I am now because, life, when you're in a life and death situation, seconds matter. So people have asked me, what would you have done? Would you have tried to shoot him? Would you have tried to? I don't know, because I didn't have that at the time. I just used what I could. So I don't really know. It's hard to say. However, when I think about Daniel Penny, again, he's a good Samaritan. He stepped in. There were very active threats on the subway. He sat back, he was watching, he was perceiving what this person was saying. He was perceiving the reactions of the people that were riding the train. They're in a very closed car, right? There's no way to get out. And this person is increasingly making threats, and the riders are increasingly becoming more and more afraid. And like a good Samaritan, he stepped in and he restrained him. I'm sure as a trained Marine, he probably knew of other ways that he could have stopped a life if he wanted to, but he was stopping somebody from carrying out a plan that this person was actively talking about that they were going to carry out. And I think he did the right thing. What are you supposed to do? Be like so many other people that stand there and just film it and do nothing until somebody is killed? Yes. As stated, he did not know whether he had a gun. He didn't know what kind of weapons were on him. And he stepped in to save other people's lives from harm and assault. And that is very, very valid. My hope is that he will have all charges dropped, because going forward, who wants to step in and help anybody anymore?
Right. Yeah. Well, our social contract with the government is that we pay taxes and they protect us. So they're not upholding their part of the contract. So right now it's on us. And so if we punish those of us who are having to take matters into their own hands for protection, then the rest of us are unsafe, right?
And we are having to take matters into our own hands here in New York. We are having to walk around, people are much more cautious. People are not going into places that they would normally previously felt comfortable going into over the number of years. I mean, this has increasingly been happening to New Yorkers over the last few years since Cuomo and Kathy Hochul are in office. And we have people like Alvin Bragg, who refuses to make criminals, accountable. Thankfully, now we have Mayor Adams, who is saying that he wants to work to try to drive down crime, but we still have a governor that refuses to do that. New York State is filled with wonderful people, and we normally step in to help others, just like Daniel Penny did. And I applaud him for stepping in to be helpful, and I think that it is a travesty that he is being tried for what he's being tried for. I pray that these charges get dropped. And obviously the person, they have had several run-ins with the law before. And as previously stated, had he already been in jail, this probably wouldn't have happened. But he wasn't. He didn't have the mental health help he needed. And he had several run-ins with the law.
And so we've seen that Democratic registration dropped 7% in New York City, 4% across New York State, which Democrats like to count on New York as reliably blue. Do you think that this is one of the major reasons that people are rejecting the Democratic Party, because they are the party of lawlessness that makes the rest of us unsafe?
100%. Yes. When New Yorkers went to the polls, and we went plus 11 points here in New York State for President Trump, that he received the largest Republican candidate vote ever in 36 years. I mean, that is pretty astounding. So New Yorkers went plus 11 points for President Trump. Our state shifted to the right. We have been shifting slowly. And the number one concern for New Yorkers is safety and security and a better economy. We need to have safety and security. We have to have the violent, illegal aliens deported from our state. We don't want sanctuary cities. We want criminals behind bars. We want bail reform repealed, and we want a stronger economy. And that is exactly what propelled New Yorkers, along with what I will say, very far left legislative agenda coming down on for gender transitions for our, for children and minors, which is happening here in New York State. It's one of the number one states in the country besides California. And it is big business, and it's growing by the millions of dollars for profit for hospitals and physicians here. And so that was the other thing that New Yorkers turned up and went for. But it was safety and security first. And we want criminals behind bars.
So interesting. Well, thank you for sharing your story. Your perspective is unique and also just incredibly inspiring. So you can follow Liz Joy at Liz Lemery Joy on X. Again, she's a former New York congressional candidate and an advocate for public safety. So it's a pleasure to meet you. Please come back on Redacted anytime.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Thanks so much.
How about that for a story? How many of us would beat the crap out of someone with a mannequin who was trying to kill your manicurist? Like, you'd like to think you're that brave, but that lady actually did it. I mean, it's an amazing story.
It's literally every man's fantasy. I mean, there's not a guy sitting around that does not fantasize about that at least once a day. Like,
yes, exactly.
Fighting back. Yeah,
100%. Really? She's shocked by this, but this is literally all you need to do. Again, read the book Wild at Heart that I just was talking about the other day on the show. This is every man's fantasy. Like, yes, to step in a moment like that as Batman and kick the crap out of somebody who's causing that. I mean,
this is shocking to me.
No, it shouldn't be. Every young boy, yes, or grab the mannequin. Yeah, the mannequin is, but that adds a layer of like femininity to it, which I think
Yeah.
But I would look around for something else, a pen,
sure,
a knife,
a
letter opener.
So Clayton was traveling recently, and I thought that I heard someone, and I walked around the house with a 20-pound dumbbell, and I was like, someone comes near me, near my kids, I'm gonna smash the ever-loving out of them. And I thought to myself, I will never be in this situation again where I can't really defend myself and I just have a dumbbell. So this is something I've thought about.
It's like, then you got to use my SIG. Yeah, just going to pull that out next time.
Yeah. I mean, so I will not be unprepared like that ever again. And so, but this is shocking to me that men are like wanting.
David, Philip, Grim, like everyone here on our show, we all have that same feeling about it. We would swoop in and do that and take care of it in a second.
Okay.
Every man watching right now is probably thinking the same thing.
I'm going to have to watch the chat while you read this next.
I mean, any man who has like any kind of level of testosterone is probably going to say
My
yes.
father, so this is a funky story. He lives in California, which is dystopian, and he was driving in the warm weather, and he had his window down, and a guy who lived on the sidewalk in a tent came up to him and said, "Do you have any money you can give me?" And my dad said, "No, I'm not going to do that." And the guy spit in his face. He was in the driver's seat, and the guy spits into his face. And I am shocked that my dad did not kill him, because my dad was state champion of wrestling in his high school years. And he was like, "I'm going to kill this guy." And he didn't. And he drove away and went home and showered like 5 times. And I thought, "Dad, how did you have the self-restraint?" And he goes, "I know I'd go to jail. Not that guy. I'd go to jail for hurting that. It's just not worth it." So anyway, I'm just saying, don't be a Daniel, protect yourself. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm going to say.
All right. Well, we've got more news to get to here on your Wednesday. In fact, we're going to look more closely at Russia right now. In the middle of the night, we're going to go to Siberia, and a special guest who's going to join us in the dark of night, under the unbelievable frozen conditions right now, just about 4 in the morning there. So we will going to do that in a second here. But first, and we're going to talk about what's going on specifically in Russia and the Russian perspective there in a second. But first, Christmas right around the corner, and the most wonderful time of year can turn to the most stressful time of year, the busiest time of year. If you want to keep prayer at the center of your Christmas and be, stress-free, connect with Source, connect with God, then the easiest way to do this is to join Hallow and their Advent Prayer Challenge. Hallow is the #1 prayer and meditation app in the world, and this season leading up to Christmas, they're bringing you an incredible prayer challenge called For God So Loved the World. In the prayer challenge, survivalist Bear Grylls, Jonathan Rumi, and The Chosen will guide you through the book A Seven Mercy, a remarkable story of a couple's encounter with God. You're also going to hear from Pastor Francis Chan and Jeff Cavins as they take you through reflections on Scripture, and actor Kevin James will be part of the challenge as well to discuss the spiritual classic Divine Intimacy. You're going to hear Advent music from award-winning artists like Gwen Stefani, Lauren Daigle, Matt Maher, and more. It's going to be powerful and real opportunity to be seriously transformed by prayer. Get 3 months of Hallow for free when you sign up. Just go to hallow.com/redacted. That's hallow.com/redacted. Spend time this Christmas receiving God's love, healing, and mercy. Once again, that's hallow.com/redacted for 3 months free. Well, Russian President Putin declared this morning, in fact, that plans to damage Russia's economy through sanctions have failed. So now the way to crush Russia is with a nuclear war, I guess. And Nato seems hell-bent on doing just that by any means necessary. Volodymyr Zelensky, the dictator from Ukraine, who, of course, canceled elections, is now conceding. He conceded yesterday, in fact, that Ukraine has no physical way of recapturing Crimea and therefore winning any kind of war. So peace? No, not exactly. In fact, the head of NATO just overnight said no peace, more weapons. So he's telling Ukraine exactly what he wants, which is World War III. Friend of the show, Tucker Carlson, just landed in Moscow for a big interview, and he warns that we are on the precipice of World War III. Watch.
In the week since we left Russia, Moscow, where we are now, in February after interviewing Vladimir Putin, we've watched from the United States as the Biden administration has driven the U.S. ever closer to a nuclear conflict with Russia, the country that possesses the world's largest nuclear arsenal. It has accelerated ever since, and it's reached its apogee so far in the weeks after Trump's election. He's now the president-elect. In that time, just a few weeks ago, the Biden administration, American military personnel launched missiles into mainland Russia and killed at least a dozen Russian soldiers. So we are, unbeknownst to most Americans, in a hot war with Russia, an undeclared war, a war you did not vote for and that most Americans don't want, but that is ongoing.
Well, joining me now from Siberia is Dmitry Zolotarev. He is a journalist and an analyst, and he's joining us from Siberia today to make sense of all of this. Dmitry, great to have you here on the show. When you, first of all, you hear the two sides of this. You hear Volodymyr Zelensky's admitting now it's over. We can't win this through physical means. We've got to maybe come to the peace table. And then you hear NATO saying, no peace. More war, more weapons. What do you think be the Russian response to this?
First of all, Clayton, thanks for having me. It's an honor. And speaking about Zelensky, I don't see him as a reasonable person. I don't pay too much attention to what he speaks. The fact is that Zelensky would never choose a negotiation table. Why? Because he knows exactly that Russia's president and politicians won't talk to him whatsoever. Not now. Maybe a few years back. So now negotiations are off the table with him. And someone from his side. You see, Ukraine is pretty much infiltrated with Western-oriented thugs and just crazy politicians who just drink in Ukraine's blood. Let me say that. So Russia won't talk to them, and they do understand them. And as far as I see, no one in Ukraine is able to change Zelensky. No perspective of overthrowing the Zelensky's government whatsoever right now. So the way is just like I see it, when Russia finishes it on its own terms. So really, and I'm sorry to say that the ongoing war is the only answer to end it, unfortunately. And speaking about Russian president, so I pretty much believe that I understand his position. He understands that there is no other way Russia is given than to continue the war. That's all the West is doing now.
With these long-range attacks inside of Russia, we saw overnight, of course, the Ministry of Defense on the Russian side launching hypersonic missiles in the Mediterranean Sea, practicing, showing off drills, practicing for a longer-range war against NATO. I mean, this is make no mistake about it. This is a war between NATO and Russia at this point. Now, Tucker Carlson in Moscow overnight interviewing Sergei Lavrov, and it's ominous. Says we have never been closer to World War III and a nuclear exchange. This war is going to continue. So, and you see the neocons in Washington, D.C. that are trying to push for that to happen before Trump takes office, a massive war. Are you concerned that even like before Christmas, this will explode in a way that we can only imagine in nightmares?
Frankly, Clayton, I see this situation two ways. It just resembled me an old joke which I heard when I was a schoolboy back in Soviet Union. If you allow me, I'll just tell it in a few words. There is a prince who wants to marry a next-door princess. So he comes to her father, asks to let him to marry her, and the father says, "Okay." But there is a country, not country, but area, very rich area, which we would like to take, but we are too much afraid because a huge bear lives there. So if you help me to get rid of the bear, you get to marry my daughter, and I'll give you half of my kingdom. Okay? So the prince says, all right, venturing into the wild, and after a week of traveling, he finds a huge mountain and a huge cave in this mountain, and it smells like bear. He figures out that the bear lives there. So he starts screaming, "Hey, bear, come out, I'll beat you-know-what out of you." And the mountain turns around and says, "You're gonna fight? All right, let's fight. Why screaming into my you-know-what?" So the fact is that those strikes into Russia by ATACMS missiles, those are like just, like Scott Ritter said, it's just pinpricks. And the real hard punch is on Russia's side. The fact is that Russia fired this new system, Oreshnik system, into Ukraine was not really understood. They are largely speculating if Russia has enough of it or it's just experimental. I'll tell you this. Russia has more than enough of Oreshnik. If Vladimir Putin says we're going to pump up the production, it means we have all we need. And the targets already planted into the system. That's how the West should understand his words. I would.
But they're not,
because
they don't seem to be taking him seriously at all. I mean, the West is poking the bear. They continue to provoke.
Yeah.
And overnight, we're seeing the almost complete collapse now of all of those areas that Ukraine had controlled in the Donbass in eastern Ukraine. And Russia has categorically taken each of these villages, all of these areas of ethnic Russians that voted overwhelmingly to become part of Russia for the protection of Russia, the Russian Federation. The front is collapsing. Those are the reports over the last 24 hours. So are we about to see? I always say this, Dmitry. The scariest people to deal with are those who have or their backs are against the ropes. They're about to be punched out, knocked out. That's when they lash out in a big way. And I'm worried now that NATO is seeing this, the total collapse of the front in Ukraine, and something big is coming here.
You know, the General Christopher Cavoli, he's a knowledgeable general. He sees it as it is. He does understand what's going on. And there are people in Pentagon who do understand what's going on. So here in Russia, we do not believe that something huge will erupt up to somewhere around Christmas or New Year or maybe in January. But we do understand that Biden's administration and his team are doing all they can to leave the United States and political situation in the world as bad as possible for him to deal. So he wouldn't have any chance to do anything to solve it. But to continue the war, that's what they're doing. And I believe that they won't do anything crucial, which would just provoke Russia to respond in, let me say, in a panic way. No panic way from Russia's side whatsoever.
And that's what they want. That's absolutely right. That's what they want. Lindsey Graham, Senator Lindsey Graham in the United States, they're actively trying to provoke Putin. And it seems like he's been sitting back. They keep doing these like long range attacks, and Putin just keeps saying, you want to keep trying this, but it seems like he's reserved in this. And there has been targeted response with these massive new missile systems. But it hasn't been overwhelming. Do you think he's sitting back waiting for President Trump to take office on January 20th?
Well, Putin doesn't wait for anyone. Putin has an agenda. And he did have an agenda in case Kamala Harris comes to the office, and he did have an agenda should Donald Trump come to the office. So he already knows what he's going to do. He already knows what Trump's team is going to do. Unless we don't have, all of Trump's team on the table. But no, you did notice that some of his speaks are just silent about anything, like Tulsi Gabbard, Robert Kennedy Jr., J.D. Vance. They don't say anything. And those who we hear, they may not be in the office at all. We have enough time to see the changes. Like it just happened. Hexet. He may not be the head of Pentagon, most likely. So, but he was one of the most vocal about we are the one team with Biden's administration. They will continue to support Ukraine and so on and so forth. Nobody in Russia, nobody serious like President Putin or Sergei Lavrov take those words seriously. They are very competent, and then they know the situation in depth. That's why Russia is so cold-blooded, so still, and all the ATACMS missiles which come to Russia, most of them, 99%, are being hit in the air. So no permanent damage has been done yet.
Dmitry, I'll get you out of here on this, which is where do you see the Ukraine-Russian war ending, or how do you see it ending, and how long until do you think it ends?
Frankly, Clayton, I think the whole next year at last. Because
next year.
The whole next year, yes, that's what I believe. And I think it's the best way scenario. Because Russia won't tolerate the whole Black Sea coast belonging to unfriendly state unless Ukrainian government is being changed to a friendly government to Russia, which is unbelievable to me right now. And this means Russia is going to take Nikolaev Oblast, Odessa Oblast, right to Transnistria. You see what I mean? So I think, and maybe more, and as long as they push for war, this means the more territories Ukraine is going to lose. Yes, its army is in collapse, but it does have a capability of some regional fighting. Let's say in Odessa, they have a huge garrison in Odessa, in Nikolaev. So it means the whole next year will be a year of heavy fighting. I see it like this. And many people, many politicians in Russia do see it the same way, as far as I believe.
Well, we'll have to see what happens when Trump takes office on January 20th and how quickly this could be wrapped up or extended. We'll see if we can hold the Trump team to its word that they want this ended immediately. We'll see about that. Joining me from Siberia is Dmitry Zolotarev, journalist and analyst from Siberia. Dmitry, great to see you. And I think it's like, 8 degrees or like negative 15 degrees Celsius right now? What's the temperature there in Siberia right now?
Let me check it out. We have the warmest November and the warmest start of December right now. Now it minus 12 Celsius.
Minus 12.
And a few days back, we did have a huge meltdown plus 6 Celsius. Unbelievable.
Wow. Wow.
Now
balmy.
We have a killer roads.
That's beach weather. Dmitry, great to see you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor, like I said.
Thank you. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and I'm
Thank you,
like
Dmitry.
sitting here like my office is burning up, and I'm like, oh yeah, I guess it could be negative 6 degrees in here Celsius. So
yeah. Oh my gosh. Hardy souls. Thank you, Dmitry, and thank you for being up in the middle of the night for us there. We appreciate it. All right, we're going to take your super chats and your Rumble rants here in a moment, and we'll open it up to some Q&A. Have just a great discussion here as we wrap things up on this Wednesday. So let us know where you're joining us from around the world. Please type it in the chat. We are live. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So please post that. A few minutes ago, Jim Hatfield, I saw post a comment on our YouTube stream, said, the Redacted censors the YouTube chat. And no, we don't. YouTube censors the chat. They have they auto censor comments. So Rumble does not, though. Rumble does not censor comments. So there are certain things that YouTube just automatically flags and won't allow us to post. So
we have the ability sometimes to unhide those comments, but like that's moving so fast, like you have to manually click a button, and we just can't get to it in time. We only have one mod. So
what we see on our backside here, what happens is, like, if you post something that YouTube doesn't like, it'll it goes into it quickly goes out in gray, like YouTube blocks it, and then the chat flies by so quickly we'd literally have to somehow go back and find it and then unhide it from YouTube's censorship. So just so you understand what happens here. So JT Smith, I see your super chat, says please read the New Testament. Yes. People should read that. People should be educated about all forms of information. So thank you for that. Please read everything you can get your hands on. You should read. Okay, we're gonna get to your super chats and your Rumble rants here in a second. But first, we don't need to tell you that healthcare, holy smokes, is wasteful, expensive, and you still have to deal with declined claims. If you're fed up with all of that, you should look into the healthcare that we use in our family here in the Morris family. We use Crowd Health. We are proud members of Crowd Health. Now, Crowd Health is not like the faith-based crowd-funded groups that crowdsourced medical bills. No. Crowd Health is a crowd-funded membership that helps you pay the best prices for healthcare and ditch those expensive premiums. Here's how it works. I'm telling you, this, guys, is amazing. Okay, we are huge supporters of this because we use it personally. We have 3 children. You join Crowd Health for a low membership fee, and it's for us about 1/5 of the amount of regular medical insurance. Seriously, it costs us about 1/5 the cost. No jokes. And then when you need to go to the doctor, Crowd Health negotiates the lowest rates for care with a doctor that you choose, and then reimburses you for those expenses. If you get hurt and you can't negotiate the price of care, they can still cover that as well. And actually, I spoke to the CEO of Crowd Health just last week, and he was telling me that I think he said about 90% of their claims that they have to deal with are because people get hurt, like they're playing pickleball and they get hurt or something like that. Only 10% are from people getting sick. So 90% are like injuries, and Crowd Health covers it. We were nervous. I have to be honest with you. We were nervous to forego normal insurance because they've beat it into your head that you should have normal insurance because it feels like such a lifeline. But when you actually think about what you're paying for a system that keeps people sick. They keep people sick. With Crowd Health, you're paying for wellness care, and most often for women's pregnancies or injury. And that crowd fund helps you when you need it. So if you're going through a pregnancy, about to give birth, the Crowd Health comes together and actually supports your birth. We're also members of their next tier service for carnivores. This is amazing, okay? We are carnivores in this family, and it's called Crowd Health Carnivore. They found that people who eat carnivore diet, they have all the data, okay? They found that people who eat a carnivore diet have a far better health markers in their life. And that's our philosophy as well. And one of their big philosophies is, why should you be supporting or supplementing vegans? Like, why? As a carnivore, the health markers are way better. So guess what? If you're a carnivore and you meet certain health requirements, you pay less. So stop spending money to fear-mongering insurance companies who profit off of you while barely covering your medical needs, and check out Crowd Health, okay? Join Crowd Health Revolution. Get help with your healthcare needs today for just $99 per month for your first 3 months. Use the code REDACTED. Use the code REDACTED, okay? At joincrowdhealth.com. You have to put the join on the front of that, okay? It's joincrowdhealth.com. Crowd Health is not insurance. Learn more at joincrowdhealth.com. That's joincrowdhealth.com, and use that code REDACTED to get your first 3 months for $99. I'm telling you, we're huge proponents of it. In fact, they actually have shirts. What's the word I'm looking for, Philip? Not support. Like, they believe you shouldn't subsidize. So Crowd Health believes you shouldn't subsidize vegans. And they actually have T-shirts that say, don't subsidize vegans. And, hey, you can eat however you want. But they have all the data that if you eat a carnivore diet, the health markers are way better. And so we hit those health markers in our family, but then we pay less. Isn't that great? Like, why should you pay for what other people are eating if they're eating poorly? Like, if people are overeating and they're like wildly unhealthy, why should you subsidize those people? Why? It doesn't make any sense. In the same way that if people are like heavy smokers, like, why would you subsidize that? That's the beauty of this type of healthcare. I can sing its praises till the cows come home because I fully believe in it, and I hope this is a wake up call to the healthcare industry in the United States, the insurance industry that rips people off. All right, let's do some of your super chats now.
So
Teresa
I'm not
Minch
sure if there's
says,
a problem over on Rumble, but we haven't had any Rumble rants since last week. So I don't know if they're having a problem showing them or if we're just not getting them.
I've seen a couple come through. I think I even saw one come through a short time ago here on the screen. So I know that I saw one pop up.
Okay, well, they're not
Rumble.
showing up in the back office where I usually find them. So let me see if I can find them somewhere else.
Okay.
Because breaking new deep state plans to stop Trump, was that Monday?
I don't know.
I think it was.
What are you saying? Are you talking about titles for the show?
Yeah. because that's the last title I have for any Rumble rants.
Dance Master says, meat is amazing and great protein. Bodie Master says, bacon for everyone. There we go. Miss Stacy Lynn, you're not getting them because they don't get read. No, we read them every day at the end of the show. So thank you, Miss Stacy Lynn. But here, Midgard 73 says rant. So we got a $1 rant there. Now I see one on Rumble. Rant for $10.
Let me go in the account overview and see if I'm seeing them back
Kip Hydro. Yeah, the back end of Rumble maybe
they're not showing.
Yeah, I didn't see them there either yesterday, so I don't know. Rumble has to fix that. Hey, Rumble team, if you're watching, you got to fix that. So yeah, if any more come in here just put the other ones up on the screen, the super chats here, and we'll get to those. But if any more come in on the Rumble side, we'll bring them up here. Okay, Lawman Land. My manuscript, First World Before the Flood, Community, chapter 34 and 35. And Azov, Ukraine to USA, YouTube chapter. Okay, thank you, Lawman Land. You have a manuscript named that. Stoops the Cat. A nuke scare by Russia will be the trigger for the fake alien invasion. The mainstream media is priming us for it now. Enjoy the show, but don't believe it. Enjoy the fake alien invasion. Well, we've been hearing that. I've been warning you for months that they're going to use some sort of a large scale scare tactic event. And is it going to be a fake alien invasion? That could be. Daniel Strasser says Blinken should send his kids into Ukraine in the first wave of troops. I'm not sending my kids into that BS war. Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, no way. Me either. That's my biggest fear about being a United States citizen is what do these warmongers want? My son is 14 years old. And if we get into something like this because they push us into this or, putting a draft in place through the Selective Service and making sure that he has to go and be a part of this. And I absolutely do not want that to happen. Stoops the Cat says you could solve homelessness in the United States for about $20 billion if it's allocated properly. Yeah, there should be no homelessness in the United States, right? If we could do it properly, get people, whether it's through drug rehabilitation or otherwise, there's zero reason we should have homelessness in the United States. JX Pat. Natalie is wrong on this one. Do some research on United Healthcare's corruption. Okay. Well, I wouldn't be surprised that there's...
Did she say something about it not being corrupt or...
I don't know. Did she say that it wasn't corrupt? I missed that. If she did. So. Did she say? Did she say that they are clean as a whistle? I doubt that would come out of her mouth. But.
Even if it was corrupt, you're talking about vigilante execution. That's not really a system of government or justice we want to get into. Like that gets out of hand.
Like the United States government is corrupt. I would never advocate for anyone to pick up a gun and go do anything to any of our elected leaders, right? Absolutely not. So, but I don't think she said something about them being clean as a whistle, but maybe she did. I'll check on that. Bling GB, formerly known as Nahab, NBA Hype. UFO, the big hoax. Oh, yeah. Well, what is it? If everyone says, this is a, silliness, or then what is it? What are these large 10-foot size drones in formation, all in sequence, doing, floating over U.S. military bases and federal agents' homes and all over the UK? What is it? I'd like someone to tell me. Extreme Steve says, are they going to lock us down over UFOs instead of COVID this time? Exactly. Well, it's not about so whatever catalyst they use, is it lockdowns from COVID? Is it is it a pandemic? Is it UFO invasion? Whatever it is. Remember the continuity of government piece of this, which is that NORAD takes over and becomes the de facto president of the United States. The head of NORAD becomes the de facto head of the United States in the event of a national invasion into the United States and a national emergency in that situation. So NORAD would take over under the continuity of government rules, which is terrifying. Talk about martial law. There you go. All right. Two Flowers. Hi from the Czech Republic. Please give us some news from Dr. Stephen M. Greer. Yeah, Stephen's been a guest on the show a number of times here. You can actually check out those videos if you'd like. And I'd like to have Steve on the show again to talk about what are we seeing with all of these UFOs, actually. Tomorrow on the show, Representative Nancy Mace is going to join us from Capitol Hill. We're going to talk to her about UFOs. She's trying to push the Pentagon to give us disclosure, so Congresswoman Nancy Mace will be here tomorrow on the show. Keith Grant says, I'm from the UK. I saw a guy with a laser near me creating them drone things for fun. The projection did look cool and bright. That's crazy. So I guess using some sort of cloud cover. Interesting. Clonty. Hi, Clayton. Can you please talk about the corruption in the sorry state of Australia? You could do a show just on all the insane things going on in Australia. Yeah, we've covered Australia quite a bit here on the show, whether it's their COVID camps, to their censorship, to their pushing towards nuclear war, aligning with the United States on AUKUS, and all of that with nuclear submarines, and basically allowing Australia to become like another United States military base. That's exactly what's happening. Thank you, Clonty. Brad Gilbert. Russia hypersonic to be cover for cyber polygon. That could be. Cruisin'. Clayton, will you be playing Path of Exile 2? Yeah, I've got my little hobby gaming channel because it takes my mind off of the craziness of the world so I can sit down and play some games. Path of Exile 2 is apparently going to be one of like the best non-woke games to come out in a while. So, by the way, I don't know if you heard, like Elon Musk is pushing right now possibly to launch his own gaming studio, which I would love. Keep all this game woke ideological crap out of our video games. And I loved him and Joe Rogan talking about it the other day about how people who play games, surgeons have a 27% better chance of do better on surgery, 27% because of their cognitive recall and precision skills. So Path of Exile 2, it's on my list. It's on my list. But anyway, hey, I've got my little gaming channel. It's called Clayton Morris. It's just a Clayton Morris gaming channel. If you want to come over there, and I did games I'm looking forward to this December. And it's a way to, just blow off some steam. Philip, you were playing some Unicorn Overlord. Did you complete it? Did you fix that glitch?
I did beat it. I haven't fixed the little glitch I had yet because I haven't gone back to check it. I've been busy, but yeah, I did beat Unicorn Overlord over our little break. Such a great game.
And so many layers of thinking too. Like you've got the way you build out your teams and strategy and all of the it's so great. It's not just like mindless stuff. Go ahead, David.
I'm not playing video games right now, but I did just buy a Minecraft Lego set that I'm going to be putting together. So
there you go, tactile.
Yep.
Yeah, I got the kid. That's right. Tactile. Old Combat Vet says, secret societies rule us. Most of Congress are members of their club who places them. Our vote doesn't count. Old Combat. I think that's what our vote doesn't count might be the word missing from there, maybe.
I think he's saying who places them, our vote doesn't.
Oh, right.
And that's it.
And those are all the super
I signed
chats.
up for Crowd Health just now.
You signed up for Crowd Health? That's awesome.
Just now.
Yeah, I was telling you about it a few weeks ago.
Yeah. Thanksgiving, you told me. Yeah, that was only so funny. A week ago, Clayton.
That's right. I forgot about that. We, we only have 3 to 4 sponsors per show on here. As I mentioned, you watch Fox and Friends or one of these other morning shows, and they'll have 27 ads, commercials. We only have 4. During the show, and we try to keep them short and in alignment with us and what we believe in here on the show. So Crowd Health is a big one. So when they reached out and said we love Redacted, we love what you guys stand for, we'd love to be a part of your show. And I said, that's funny. I'm already a member of Crowd Health. And not only are we a member of Crowd Health, we're at their carnivore level. So we're actually we've hit these anyway. So I love when those things align like that. I said, absolutely. Come on, join us. We love you guys. All right. Let's see. Anything else here, guys?
I just saw a super chat come in.
Oh, you did?
On the back screen.
This one? Oh, Hershey Yang says, I don't think Ukraine will have any men left to fight off NATO when they walk in and take those resources. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point. Remember, follow the money, follow the resources. They want to turn Ukraine into basically an aircraft carrier where we can go in and we steal all of their minerals. BlackRock, Vanguard, they've all done it. So Ukraine doesn't really exist as a country anymore, any kind of an independent country. It is a vassal state for the United States that we control. The CIA controls it. The State Department controls it. And it is being used right now as a NATO aircraft carrier. That's about it. And T.R. Richmond with a super chat. Japheth shall dwell in the tents of Shem. Genesis, what do you think that might mean for international relations? Not quite sure. I don't... am I missing... I'm not sure I can answer that one. What do you think? Anybody?
No, not me.
Try to piece that together. It's been a long show. I can't piece that one together. Jairo Para says in 1952, UFOs flew over the White House and in other areas. Oh, yeah. It was the Washington, D.C. UFO flap while President Truman was in office. And he talked about it publicly on the news. And there's photos of it. You can see the 1952, all of these UFOs that flew over the White House. Discs, large discs. So if you think it's all fake, go back to 1952 and see those famous photos. Thank you, guys. All right, we're going to get you out of here. Thank you guys for a great show today. Appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow. Congresswoman Nancy Mace is going to be joining us to talk about this UFO flap and what she's hoping to get out of the Pentagon. I want to ask her, is she going to subpoena anybody? Is she going to subpoena the CIA for these deep state programs that they're keeping from you and they're keeping them from me? So Congresswoman Nancy Mace joins us tomorrow here on Redacted. Have a great night, everyone, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.